Coming up on today's show.
That when you really get clear about what it is that you want to be giving people and you're living in your authenticity and you create healthy boundaries, then you're actually going to be doing a better job of what you're doing.
Everybody, I think, wants to be productive, don't they? So, how do you get over that? What are some of the big mistakes that people make?
You really want to start with what you really want to create and knowing your own self. So before you create a schedule, I don't just plop some schedule down in front of somebody and say, this is what you should follow. You want to really go inside and ask yourself some serious questions.
Tips for being a more productive entrepreneur today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we're going to talk about productivity, and particularly we're going to focus on entrepreneurs. You know, those one-man shows that or one-person shows that do everything. They got to be really productive. So we're going to bring in a new guest here on Keeping You Organized, Erica Salut, right? Is a certified professional organizer, Massachusetts area, Cambridge. Erica?
That's me. Thanks, Matt.
Well, good. Yes, it's your first podcast here for Keeping You Organized, so we're excited to have you on. And why are we going to be talking about entrepreneurs and productivity? It almost seems like that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Well, meaning that you don't think entrepreneurs can be productive?
Well, they have to be, but they're always doing 100 different things, aren't they?
Well, that's the thing. You don't really want to be doing 100 different things at a time. So my strategies are about just doing one thing at a time, and also, like you said, doing everything. That one of my strategies is about not doing everything. So yeah, I'm gonna bust some myths probably with you in this little short time we have together.
Okay, mythbusters. How would we start with that, or maybe mistakes or that people make? Everybody I think wants to be productive, don't they? So how do you get over that? What are some of the big mistakes that people make?
One of the biggest mistakes I find that people make, even if I'm just on the beach and talking to someone and they tell me they run their own business as, a massage therapist, is that they don't tailorize and tie together their time. They just feel like they're working all the time. So even if I'm just recommending a really quick strategy to someone, like I said, if I meet them on the beach and they ask me a question, is to really create their own schedule that revolves around the life that they want, instead of just working whenever people want them to, whenever they think they should be working. And that's the tailorized part. It's really going to work to be what they want, the lifestyle they want. When their energy is high, know when your energy is high, when your energy is low, when you schedule things. And then the tying together part is really about boundaries. And I can't even tell you how many entrepreneurs have really weak boundaries or no boundaries at all. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that what happens is that people think that boundaries, they have this misconception about what boundaries are. They think that means erecting a wall, putting up a wall, and they don't want to do that because they want a lot of business. They want people to like them. But the truth is that when you really get clear about what it is that you want to be giving people and you're living in your authenticity and you create healthy boundaries, then you're actually going to be doing a better job at what you're doing. And I think that's really the key, is knowing when you work, when you don't work. This is my schedule. This is when I schedule in clients. This is when I have my time to work in my office, whatever that is, that you're creating that schedule and then really sticking to it and not breaking it for everything that comes up and think, oh, this is just and this is an exception. You hear that people say that a lot. Well, this weekend I'm going to do it because blah, blah, blah. So I think that really helps people be more authentic, and actually they seem more powerful when they interact with people if they have those boundaries.
Well, it seems like, though, entrepreneurs, they want the business. So maybe they set up this schedule, but then someone says the only time I'm available is this, and it's like the customer is always right. What kinds of things can you give them to try to get the customer's time shifted so it fits for their time?
Sure. So I think that's a really big misconception, to think that the customer is always right. I think people say that in sort of the service industry, and when you're an entrepreneur in the service industry, you might think that you work in a restaurant, and that's right. The customer is always right. The client's always right. I think that's really not the case. You're not saying to people, oh, I can work with you then, and then canceling on them. You're saying, this is my schedule, and this is when I work with people. And if you are really clear before you start who your ideal client is, your ideal client will fit into that schedule. I know that sounds sort of like a that I'm making that up. But when I work with entrepreneurs and they do it, they say, oh my gosh, that's totally right. This is what happens. You don't need to be everything to everyone. Think about if you see a restaurant and there was Japanese food, Chinese food, and Thai food, you'd be more leery about going in there than if it was just Thai food.
Right.
Because you become an expert in that area, and that means that you don't need everybody to be your client. So oftentimes it happens to me, people say, oh, but I work during those hours because my schedule is very much a 9 to 5 during the regular work week kind of schedule. And if they're the right client, they actually will say, well, you know what? I have vacation time and I'll work with you then, or I'll get off early, or I'll go and go to work late that day, or I'll work from home that day. They find some way, if they're the right client, to work with me. And that happens to all the people that I coach too. Right. And I think that you just have to stand in your power and believe it and test it out. I tell people, just test it out. If you feel like it's not working, then you can do something different. But they find that it does work because you're living in your authenticity and your own power, what you want to create. And that's very powerful, the energy that you create when you do that.
So let's talk about creating that schedule and those hours. How would you, do you have someone like block out time and literally say, my office hours or my work hours, whatever they are, here to here? And, what do you do when someone wants to get them out of that time frame? Do they say, I'm booked, I'm busy, or, what are some of those like really tactical kinds of things someone can do?
Well, it sounds like you're asking two questions. One is, how do you create what you're going to follow? And then how do you sort of sustain that when you feel maybe a little pressure? And right. I always tell people, I warn them, you are going to get pressure. I mean, I still even get pressure from even people who know me well, like even people in my personal circles, other organizers who work sort of like me. They don't like certain things that I say, no, that's like, I can't do it at that time. So I get a pushback. So I know what it's like and I live it every day. So I'm really good at coaching people in that. So number one is, you really want to start with what you really want to create and knowing like your own self. So before you create a schedule, I don't just like plop some schedule down in front of somebody and say, this is what you should follow. You want to really go inside and ask yourself some serious questions, get into like what you really want to create from like your heart, not in your head, not what you think other people have told you when you should work. Maybe you want to work on a Saturday and not work on a Thursday. If that works for you, then do that. Maybe because of your kids' schedules or your husband's schedule, whatever you want to, when your other friends don't work, you create something that's really unique. So I guide people through this reflection, which asks them a lot of questions. And then we work with that and we create a schedule from that. Whatever comes up from them organically, really from like inside of themselves. And then once they have that, I want to really emphasize that it's a living thing. So there's a difference between just breaking it all the time because people pressurize you or you don't have any strong boundaries, or, oh wait, you know what? My life has changed now and I need it to be different, my schedule to be different. So I ever look at mine even once in a year, or when stuff comes up, when I feel like there's something, I'm getting resistance. Why is that? Like one day I went on a retreat and actually changed my whole schedule around because I feel like I had this thing that wasn't working for me anymore because my life had changed and I made it different. And now I follow that schedule instead. Mm-hmm. So once you get it going, people will ask you, well, why can't you do it at that time or whatever? You don't have to give details. I worked with an organizer recently who was saying to me when she was working with, not just to make a plan for us to talk, she was saying, well, I might go to that yoga class. I'm like, she was being like in this zone that I call wishy-washy, and she didn't sound powerful. So I coached her to, you don't want to talk to other people like that. I'm just saying, from talking to me, you were giving me this impression that you weren't very professional. You might go to a yoga class instead of work. You want to know, do I go to that yoga class regularly or do I work? So you can just tell people, oh no, I'm booked then. You don't have to give them an explanation of whether it's personal or business. You know your schedule. But you can tell them when they're booking sessions with you if you're a coach or any service industry you do, anything you do like that, you can say, these are my open slots and this is when I work. I mean, I definitely do that. These are my slots. This is when you can book me. So that I'm not being like sketchy about like I'm making them guess. Right. But then if they ask for one that's booked, oh, that's not. It's okay for them to know if it's a work time, but you don't work with clients. Oh, Monday's like today. I'm talking to you. It's a Monday. It's my office day all day. Everybody knows that I don't work with clients on that day. I never work with them. They don't keep pushing me. My clients know. Like that's okay. It doesn't mean my mom won't call me during the day. But you know what? I have the boundary that, okay, I'm working. So that's what I tell people in terms of keeping it up. And the more you do it, the more it'll just be natural and you'll able to put aside the other stuff. you know you have a home, a time for that stuff to go into, and you'll just become more confident in that and to live that for yourself.
Right. Another problem that entrepreneurs have is procrastination. How do you deal with that?
I have to say that this is one of the things that when I think about procrastination, that it's one of the things that I know a lot about it because I have an issue with that. Like, I really struggle with that myself. So I have a few techniques that have really worked for me and for my clients. One is to make sure that the things that you are procrastinating on, are they like part of your bigger, like palpable, like goals that you have put down? Because you might be procrastinating, first, just to understand this, is on stuff that's like really small and that's not important, and that's okay. But if it's something that's really big, the strategy that I can just tell people to do is to make it even a smaller task, like break it even down into a smaller task than you've done in your head. So for instance, you want to rectify all your frequent flyer miles, right? For all the you want to make sure you've got them all. You went to that hotel, you went to that flight. Do they all go into where they're supposed to go? If you look at that as one big project, I'm going to sit down and let's say you travel a lot. That might take you 2 hours. But if you say, if you've been procrastinating on it, you say, look, I'm going to break it down into today. I'm just going to do American Airlines. That's it. I'm just going to do one airline. Then it becomes really much smaller. And you can say, I'm just going to do that and get it done. Or you could say to yourself, I'm going to work on this for 10 minutes, set a timer and just do it. So you don't think it's this big thing that turns into 3 or 4 hours, which sometimes things can if you're procrastinating on them long enough. So I give people this tool called the Next Action Sheet. And you can use it on your computer, or you can do a hard copy of it, print it. I pilfered it from David Allen's work and kind of tweaked it for my clients, where you literally write what the project name is. It's something that's big that you've been procrastinating on. And then you write down, this is how you know it would be off your plate. So for instance, in that example I gave you, it would be off your plate when all your frequent flyer miles are rectified. And they write that down. And then you start breaking it down into teeny weeny chunks where you start with a verb and with a period. And you just look at that one thing and you tackle that. The next day, you might do another 10 minutes or the next task. And that really works. People will stop procrastinating on those really big projects if they can see the small little chunk that's going to take them a few minutes. The next time, go to the next one. And that is my top strategy for stopping procrastinating.
All right. Well, that's procrastination. We're going to take a quick little break here. And when we come back, we'll talk about another word that begins with P, which is prioritization. We're with Erica Salut, living-harmony.org, and we'll be right back. Would your family be able to easily access your important documents for a major life event? Having your key life documents organized helps ensure that your wishes and assets are managed, retained, and distributed as needed while being less stressful for you and your loved ones. The Life Document Organizer Kit helps you to organize and store key life documents like wills and trusts, healthcare directives, investment and retirement plans, marital documents, key personal contacts, and more. Life events that might trigger a need for these documents include a health condition where someone may need to take over certain responsibilities, or decisions regarding care or communicating your wishes regarding your assets. And access to these important documents is key. The Smead Life Document Organizer Kit is divided into 6 color-coded sections. Each section contains individual folders that pertain to that section. The Smead Wheel of Organization provides an easy reference and guide to recommend what documents should be stored within each section. The Life Documents Organizer Kit has the flexibility to expand by adding additional categories that are specific to your own situation. Being prepared can alleviate your own stress and the stress of others. Keep your life and the documents that matter most in order with the Life Documents Organizer Kit. From Smead, keeping you organized. We are back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about prioritization, procrastination, things that are involved with another P word, which is productivity, and particularly talking about entrepreneurs, those people that have their own businesses and have to get a lot of things done. And joining us is Erica Salut from living-harmony.org. So before the break, we talked about procrastination. Now we are going to talk about prioritization. And Erica, let's get into that for the entrepreneur. How does an entrepreneur prioritize?
So I I could talk about what most people talk about, the matrix where you say important, not important, urgent, and most people know about that or they can look it up. So I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to give you a really quick strategy that can really work when you feel overwhelmed and are you thinking, I don't have all this stuff to get done and I don't know how to prioritize it. Look at your list of stuff and say to yourself, this is just one question you can ask yourself. I'll phrase it 2 different ways, depending on which one you like. You can take it. What would be the consequences if I did not get this done today? And then think about what the consequence is. Or does this support one of my feeling or my palpable, like big term, like long-term goals? And if you answer both of those questions or one of those questions, the most important being, if I don't get it done today, what's going to happen? A lot of times we realize we put pressure on ourselves. We make it like we have to get this done at this time when it's not really the case. We have more time. It could be moved down the road. It was not going to have as bad a consequence. But if, for instance, like tax time coming up, a lot of us, for instance, right now might have our accountant waiting for our taxes this week, potentially. The consequence might be pretty big if we don't get our stuff into our accountant this week, right? So that would be something to have to get done. Prepping to talk to you today would be something I have to get done. But I might say, what would happen if I don't call that person I'm thinking of hiring an assistant that I read the resume of? That might be, oh, wait a minute, there's no consequence. You realize that a lot of times there's no consequence when you actually put it out there, or the consequence is much smaller than something else. That way you can just order your stuff. Wait, this comes first, this comes second. This is a really bad consequence, right? I'll have to ask for an extension. That's way more paperwork, blah, blah, blah. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that done today.
Right. Now, are you always going to work on the number one priority though? I mean,
so this is where you get into that matrix thing where people say, if you always are working on stuff that's just urgent, but not really important, you don't ever get to those big projects. You only get to like the fires. I have to put out this fire, I have to put out that fire. But this goes into a bigger issue of what you're delegating so that you are getting to you have time to get to your big projects, which we might talk about that delegation part today too. And that way you don't have everything on your plate, so you can. So, you have to work on things that are not always urgent, but if you only end up with urgent things on your list every day, that means you're not delegating. And that's a whole nother, entrepreneurial issue that people have to deal with, unlike those.
Right. Now, you talked a little bit earlier about David Allen, and he has a system and other people have systems. What are some of the basic elements of a system that you would recommend that an entrepreneur use to, be productive? I mean, obviously, I think you have to have a calendar, right? And but do you have certain files that you have or certain checklists? What would be some of the tools that you use?
I think this is really basic. Obviously, basic, the schedule is not basic because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that do not have a schedule at all. They have a calendar, which is not the same thing as a schedule. A schedule is what we just talked about, creating like when you do this, when you do that. Obviously, a calendar, that's a no-brainer, but I do see entrepreneurs that don't have calendars that sync, for instance, between their devices. So that's another thing I would say. You might have a calendar, but does it sync with your phone? Does it sync with any other devices you use if you use an iPad, so that you're always looking at the same calendar and then it's actually working technology-wise? And then actually some sort of to-do, once again, it sounds like a no-brainer in this day and age, some sort of task to-do project list where all of your tasks are in one system. And sometimes when I start working with people, they have 3 or 4 systems that they're using. So they might write stuff down in a notebook. They might also have like a task app on their phone, and they might be using something simple on their computer. And then they're putting actual tasks into their calendar as well, which I don't think tasks belong in a calendar. That's a whole nother thing. They do belong in a task system. And I recommend one system. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. A lot of people think that they have to have something like, something like getting things done, which is pretty sophisticated, or OmniFocus was OmniWeb created. And that's really sophisticated. It has like all these bells and whistles. You can use it, but you don't need to use all the bells and whistles, which actually is connected to one of my major tips about technology, which is let the need dictate the technology, not the technology dictate the need. So many people think, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This thing this app for tasks lets me buy, the coffee, or lets my dog buy the coffee, where you don't even drink coffee, and then you have a way for your dog to go buy your coffee. So you really need to think about, what is my need? And do I need all these bells and whistles? Or can I use this app, but not use all the bells and whistles, because that's just going to stress me out. And that's not what I need. So really having a really good application for your task management is another thing that I think is really essential. Anything else that you're sort of thinking when you think of like the big picture that you want to ask me about?
Well, now how about the apps? What apps do you use? I mean, they don't even have to be productivity apps.
Yeah. So I actually, for my calendar, because I'm an Apple person, I just use the calendar that syncs with because I have an iPhone, with my calendar on my computer. And so it syncs, and that's the only two devices that I use. I have an iPad, but I don't use it for like work kind of stuff, except for like a teleprompter, because I just think the more devices you have, the more you create more things that have to sync up. And it's like, that's all I need. I'm sitting at my desk, I'm working, and I'm on my phone, I'm with a client, I'll have my calendar out. So that's my calendar. For tasks, I actually simply use a Word doc for each category of each project that I have. So for my marketing and my PR, I have a different Word doc. And then that way I can just literally cut and paste. I don't use any app on my phone for my tasks, because if I'm out and about, I'm not working. So I don't need to look at my tasks. And if they're personal tasks, same thing. Like I use an app for shopping and I ask for errands, which I really love, because then it lets me like check off stuff. And I do use it when I'm out and about on my phone. But in reality, I think it's better to containerize our time, so that if I'm in front of my computer, that's when I need to look at my tasks. I don't need to have them on the go. But I'm very unusual in that respect. I know most people are doing things on the go, but I don't recommend it. It's not really good for our body to be like all the time, like we're working, where we're standing in line at the grocery store. Oh, can I look at an email? Can I read an email? It's not really, really efficient way to operate. So that's why I just use this simple system. And actually, a lot of my clients that I work with really take that system and run with it too, if they're not using something that they really like already. And it actually completely works. It's very, very simple.
Well, those are great tips there. We're just about out of time. I want to give you the opportunity to tell people a little bit about your business, what kind of customers you work with, and how they can get a hold of you.
My company is Living Harmony, and we're in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I work virtually with people all over, live and also virtually. So via Skype, via phone, I coach people, virtual organizing, productivity. And the website is living-harmony.org. And the clients that I work with mostly are other entrepreneurs and also academics, professors, because they also create their own schedules. And I'm really good with working with them too. They just almost are like little mini entrepreneurs. And you can get hold of me. All the info's on the website and phone number, and email me or call me and I'll get right back to you.
Well, Erica, it's a great conversation today. I think particularly for entrepreneurs and for professors. I know in that Cambridge area, there's a lot of academia there as well. So, we'll bring you back on another time and talk about maybe productivity for the rest of us that work in corporate America, because maybe it's the same, but maybe it's a little bit different. But anyway, there you go, folks. Now you can have a few more tips to be a little more productive, and we'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized. Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
The number one thing that I hear is that a client will come to me, or even a friend, family member, and say they are so overwhelmed because what they see is next is this huge thing.